this game has grown from somewhere, didn't just all of a sudden pop, right? There have been the shoulders of many that we are currently standing on in the game. So you listen to what the winners say about women's basketball, not people who have like no idea, right? Consider the source. And if that source hasn't won anything, then you can dismiss it.
There are a lot of internet coaches.
Thank you.
And a lot of internet critics that have never touched a basketball.
Thank you.
All I want is credit, give me mine. We've been counted out too many times. They was hating, told them get in line. Ain't no breaks until we hit the finish line. I cannot retire from it.
Welcome to Sideline Stories, a can't retire from this podcast, where our common denominator is hoops. We're bringing you interviews, stories, and insight from all around the women's basketball world because, well, we really can't retire from this. Let's get into it.
We are here for another episode. Can't retire from this, Sideline Stories. I am very, very excited to talk with these two all-stars over here. We have Christy Scott and we have Ayana Ward, two legends in the DMV area that I had the privilege of interviewing for Can't Retire from This, the documentary 5 years ago. And on this day, 5 years ago, is when we started this journey, which is insane to think about.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And just the people, because I didn't know you guys before then either. So the fact I got to, thank you for sharing your stories with me so candidly on camera on the first day you met me. So, if you could both just introduce yourselves for the people that may be listening that might tap in and tell us who you are.
I'm Ayana Ward. I am the athletic director and girls basketball coach at Largo High School. And I'm the mother of Cameron Ward, who will be attending Michigan State University next year.
I'm Christy Scott and played basketball at South Lakes and coached there for 17 years, which is odd to me to say, but also spent some time coaching on the collegiate level for 9 years. And I was at George Mason, and I was also at Maryland, and then I was at Georgetown. So it was quite a run, but then left there to coach at South Lakes because of all the littles and three littles and not so little anymore. They're super tall, but Jerome Jr., Brianna, and Jordan. And Jordan will be also attending Michigan State with Cam. So, yeah.
How crazy, how incredible is that? Once I saw both you boys committed, I was like, I have to tell this story in whatever way. And I'm so thankful and grateful you both were available today because you live such busy, crazy lives. And also congrats to you on your master's degree.
Thank you.
Oh, brother.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Because what?
How did you manage to do that? Wow.
It was a break in between there, but we finished.
That's all right. Got it done, though.
Yes, we did.
Yes,
So,
coaching, still getting your education amongst all this. How did you do it for those that maybe want to continue their education amongst all this?
A lot of late nights and early mornings before your day gets started. Honestly, I don't know. I just think I was just moving. And
No, that's right.
As a parent, sometimes you just move and you just have to go and keep going until it's done. And
that's it.
Were you and your son doing homework at the same time?
No, I had to do everything when they were asleep because
No, that's exactly.
they like to talk to me. I don't want to talk when I'm doing my work. I just need to get it done.
Yeah.
I love the relationship I have with all my kids, but I had to, shut it down.
You said, don't talk to me.
Yeah, it's peaceful at night and in the morning. So
understood.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And then Christy, you've been all over the map. I mean, you have a tournament named after you now.
Which is bananas. The She Got Game and FIBA Fairnot and all of them, when I was coaching, we would always participate in the She Got Game tournaments across the DMV. And so when he approached me and said, you should think of doing a classic. And then how scheduling goes. Seems like every year we need one more game.
Yeah.
So it's like a 1 day, 1 game opportunity in the DMV, easy to get to. You don't have to travel to Florida or anything like that. Not a lot of teams can afford that. I know we couldn't.
We
for
definitely can't.
big travel stuff. So just make it convenient, but also it's during the holiday time.
Right.
So you have, aunties, grandmas, grandfathers, everybody can come and at least see one game, if they're in town to visit for the holidays. So to me, that was the most important thing. And now, we're starting on our fourth year coming up. So just plan that for December. We're trying to lock in dates. We were just working on that yesterday. So just getting the proverbial ball rolling and keeping it rolling. And I think, I told all my kids too, I was like, whenever the day comes when I'm not here, I want that to continue, like, and to keep it going because I just think it's a really sweet time of year, but it's also special for the area.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm so happy I was able to come this
Yeah,
past
you
year.
did. You
Like,
did.
what a surprise, and that energy in that space was
It was
incredible.
so much fun. And I just got goosebumps and tears in the eyes, because they had the shirts on and all the things, and I always choose like a good quote, or I think it's a good quote, but it was keep that same energy was the thing. And you know how that goes about the energy
The
and how
energy.
you can't coach that.
Exactly. You can't coach it.
Yeah.
Gotta keep that
It's
same
awesome.
energy.
Keep
Gotta
that same
keep it.
energy on and off the court
Gotta keep it.
and
On and
keep
on.
going like you were talking about.
Yes.
Gotta keep it.
Go with
Man,
that.
I love that. Let's talk about how basketball, women's basketball specifically, has changed in the 5 years since we have had our last sit down talk on camera.
Ups and downs. Speaking of a public school sector, a lot of ups and downs with girls basketball. The numbers have dropped in PG County. They're rising. They're rising back up now. But I just call it the COVID generation.
Mm.
When they sat at home for that year and a half, 2 years, they didn't do anything. So when it was time to come back to basketball, come back to public school basketball, or come back to just a norm, that norm was no longer there, and it kind of faded. But now it's picking back up, and it's full steam ahead right now. And I love the energy that the kids are bringing. I love the mindsets that they're bringing. Where we thought that COVID was negative, it was actually a positive for the younger kids because now they actually have something that they're looking forward to.
That was super tough. And I haven't coached high school basketball for 3 years, but also in the public sector, public high school sector. So I know when we did have COVID, a lot of parents didn't let their kids
Mhm.
play or try out. So then that next year, I was like, "Oh, you're a sophomore? We missed you last year." Yeah, my parents said, "Let me play."
Right.
So they were sitting at home and not participating and not getting those reps that are very necessary to continue to grow as student athletes. So for me, I've seen that, I think I changed as a coach because of COVID, because I think I was so grindstone, like, this is what we have to do, this is what we have to do. And I think because they took such a hit with everything being taken away, no homecoming, no prom, no
Mhm.
socialization, all of the things, I felt like I let off a little bit because I didn't want to be yet another, component of stress or push them too hard because they're being pushed in a way that none of us were able to navigate because it's never happened before. So I think for me, I felt like I kind of took the edge that I had, and sometimes I wanted to, say things a certain way or with some, with some gusto, and I'm like, "No, they had a hard day today," or, "Oh, they're going through
No, I
so
understand.
much
My
socially." So I felt like I changed, so I know they did too.
Yeah, absolutely. My former players, they call me soft now.
See?
Um,
I'm saying
they
it's
say that, you wouldn't have never let us get away with this or
yeah,
get away with that. And I'm
exactly.
like, you don't understand. These babies are different.
They're different.
You have to actually keep in mind
Yes,
the things that they might be going through
absolutely.
mentally. Where back in the day, we didn't care about none of that. We just,
No,
if you here, you
we
here,
rolling.
but a
Yeah,
lot of these
yeah,
babies, they're coming out to play basketball as an outlet now,
yes,
where it was an outlet for us too, but it was just on a different spectrum.
absolutely.
This outlet is, I don't want to go home,
Yeah.
or I just want to be part of something positive.
Yeah.
A lot of these babies, they don't really, in a public school, they don't want to go to the next level, or they might not want to go to the next level
Right.
until they recognize their potential.
Yeah.
And they just want to be a part of something positive.
Absolutely. So I want to take that from them. So
Mhm.
I
So we
definitely
have to have
agree.
those softer conversations and that whisper in the ear and that hug and that arm around the shoulder,
Absolutely.
type of feel with the new generation.
So the love for basketball has changed. Like the love is still there,
Mhm.
but it's a new perspective on it.
Absolutely.
Yes, no doubt. And that's what I felt like during that time and, those couple of years after COVID, felt like I was asking them, "How's everybody doing today?"
Mhm.
You know, whereas before that, I was kinda like, "Everybody good? All right, let's go." And we just
Mhm.
everybody's like, "Yep," and then we just keep moving. But I think there was a real temperature taking
Yes.
opportunity, and not just because of COVID or whatever, the check-ins that we had to do in the car
Mhm.
with, checking temperatures in the car, you wanna coach basketball, but I'm like, "Am I in the medical field now?" But, for the county, it's like we had to record all their temperatures, but I think you wanna also check the temperatures of them mentally and
Mentally,
and
yep.
how they are responding to the isolation of it. They had to compete with mask on. I know I almost passed out a couple times wearing the mask, like, trying to talk, and I wasn't even running. Like, how are they running and supposed to be talking on defense, offense, whatever? How are you running around with this on?
With
And
this mask on,
I'm
yes.
like, it was a challenge in so many different ways that, I think we need to examine that, like, in terms of how those kids got themselves through it. And I think they'll probably become stronger people character-wise, and I think
Yes.
for us too, because we had to temper the aggression of our
Mhm.
competitive fire, right, as a coach. But I think for these kids, like, I think in 10 years, I think, if you go back and look at what they had to go through to
Mhm.
be able to get whatever they'll be doing in life at that time, I think they're gonna say, like, "I really had to find out about who I was a lot sooner,"
Mm.
in terms of their character and moxie and the grit that was necessary during that time.
And I think we all kind of went through that
Yeah, we
Mhm.
did.
too. Like, do you think that that compassion into the game was necessary?
Yes, in a certain sense. It just made you actually have to get to know your players a little bit more.
Absolutely.
You had to dig a little bit deeper to find
Absolutely.
out what really pushes their buttons or what's gonna get
Mhm.
them going. So I think it made great for the relationships, the coach player relationship,
Yep.
more so than just out here just coaching a group of kids,
Absolutely right.
you know. So you knew if I said this to him, if I did this, or if I looked at this kid a certain way, I knew she would give me what I needed. But I know over here, I got to whisper in her ear and baby talk her a little bit and
Yeah.
get her moving,
Like, come on
So
now.
I think it made great for the dynamic of me as a coach
Yeah.
to be able to tap into that softer side
Mm.
of coaching. Then it also helped the players actually be able to relate to somebody other than somebody in their house.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think, just the love and compassion that, my dad was a pastor. So those are the two key components to just life in general.
That
And I think, and I think that's what coaching is always. But I think that just kind of magnified it a little bit more. And like you said, to force you to delve deeper into exactly what that would be for you, right? And for each player, like we each have three kids,
yeah,
or a mom of three, and each of them are different, right?
yeah.
And so it's the same way for coaching. You have 12 kids on the team, each of them are different
Mhm.
in that way. And so that's the challenge as a leader of these youngsters and these young women. You want them to be leaders, but you can't reach them all in the same way. The same as a
Exactly.
mom, you got to reach them in where they are, and then try to elevate.
Yeah. And that's so interesting. Even now I'm thinking the similarities between you guys and like three kids. My mom, like
Yeah, yeah,
perfect, like three
yeah,
on every
yeah.
side.
2 boys and a girl.
Same,
Yeah.
Two boys and a girl.
Yeah,
same. See, look at the synergy. I love it. I just got goosebumps.
absolutely.
Like, let's go.
What?
it's,
There's something there.
it's
Like,
beautiful.
and let's talk about like how you were able to raise your kids, especially in this sports community. Like, what was your perspective on that and to where you are now with your
Yeah.
sons going to the same school?
I never forced it on them because I knew what my passion was. I didn't want my passion to become their passion. So I let them kind of feel their way out and, do as they needed to. But I also let them try out every sport possible to figure out what their niche was. You just wasn't going to sit in the house and do nothing.
Mm.
So they had
Yeah.
to find something to do. So both the boys they both played soccer, they both ran track, they both played basketball, but basketball seems to be their niche. And my daughter, she didn't want any parts of any of it. She's a dancer. So I'm a dance mom too.
I love it.
It took me a long time to accept that, but I do, and I love that for her, but I let them feel themselves out and become who they needed to be for themselves instead of me forcing it on them.
Yeah, I agree. The same thing, I was coaching in college, right? I was at Maryland when our firstborn was born in December, right? I couldn't go to Mexico for the Christmas tournament because, he was a December baby, but after that, Coach Weller, who was coaching their Hall of Fame coach, she stepped down and I'm sorry, our oldest son was like 8 weeks old. Right. So I was like, oh boy. So it was kind of like, you got to switch and get out. But for me, it was like, it was the best thing that happened. Like when you look back retrospectively, and again, not forcing the game on them, but because I was involved in the game, that's just how things happen. And I started coaching at Georgetown. Bree was 10 months old. I was coaching there. Oldest was 2 at the time, and I coached there for 7 months, and it was tough because, I couldn't have them in the gym with me. I was assistant coach with Terry Williams from Illinois, right? So, I couldn't have them in the gym with me. It was really tough, and my mom had just retired. I can't retire, but she had just retired. But, so she was home, so I felt guilt on both sides because she just retired, and I left her at home with
A
2
baby.
littles,
Right.
So, um, South Lake's job opened up. I left Georgetown and went back to the alma mater, and I had them in the gym, with the juice boxes and the,
Mhm. Yep.
the goldfish, and we had a time. They were skateboarding with the ball rack, basketballs flying
Mhm.
around, but we were all together, okay? And then Jordan was born, so he right into it. So
Mhm.
I just think that, they understood that's what I did, but it wasn't who I was. And I think I want that for them too. It's what you do. It's not necessarily who you are. Your character is developed because of what you do, but you're not just a coach. You're not just a basketball player.
Right.
You are someone with passion and emotion and competitiveness. And if that suits you, then you do that. So I concur with that.
That's so cool. I've been basketball, basketball, basketball. I tried tennis and hated the heat. I could not
Oh, see.
handle it, but I love watching tennis, and apparently skateboarding was too dangerous. So so basketball just became, and my mom had the key to Laura Boys and Girls Club, and
Mhm.
me and my brothers and whoever, but it was an open door policy. Whoever came to the gym, like, that's what was fun
That's what
for
you're gonna do
us,
it.
and it was the access to
Mhm.
it,
Absolutely,
and
we're in
I
the
think
gym.
that's what makes this area unique,
Yeah.
Yes.
especially for us growing up.
Yeah.
Um, so with your kids and, your individual legacies in women's basketball in this area, what was their perception of women's basketball growing up?
Um, I think they thought it was awesome until they knew that they could beat the girls. I know for Cam especially, he started out practicing with my team, going through the drills with them and doing the basic fundamental stuff with them. And then once he got tall enough or realized, oh, I can actually beat this girl. I can actually score on them now. That's when we moved him up to the boys. No, you go practice with the boys now. So, but I think that gave him the perspective like, oh no, girls can do this too,
Mhm.
and it gave him that respect to all of his now big sisters that, no, I remember y'all used to beat up on me, but now I got the key.
Right.
So he loves coming to my games. He loves watching my players, even my current players now. They're like his sisters at school. So he has the utmost respect, or all of my kids have the utmost respect for girls basketball.
Yeah, same. And I think, just being at the practices, right? I would bring food to practice, and then because someone would inevitably have like an AAU practice at 6 or
Mhm.
something, we would practice right after school. So that was like their, early dinner, and the rest they could have after practice. But, they were always in the gym. And I think there was a respect level there for girls basketball and women's basketball. And then in the summer, I was working Mystics, so they're out of school. I had to be there way early, right? So you can't stay at home. Like we're
Let's
going.
go. Mhm.
So we go to all these WNBA games. I mean, there's a picture of me holding Jordan. He was probably 2. I'm at a Mystics game walking in, with the other 2, walking by my side, and we were in the gym all the time. So they fell in love with the WNBA, all 3 of them. So it wasn't just our daughter, Bree, it was all 3 of them, and then the players would talk to them. So then they became like these massive fans of the players, not just of the Mystics, but of the league in general. So to this day, people ask Jordan, our youngest, they ask him, who's your favorite basketball player? And he says Candace Parker. So he was wearing number 3 for Candace Parker in AAU,
Right.
and she is like connected to him. And I think it was 6th grade, and they were playing. She was with LA at the time, and I had posted some stuff, I don't know, from AAU highlighter, I don't know, something, and I was calling him Jordo online, and so I saw her, and I was like, "Is it okay, if he comes in just to meet, Candace and Shanae, right, and NECA?" And they were like, "Yeah, come on in," and she's like, "Jordo," and I can't even. His face was like, "Oh my God, nobody calls me that but my mom." He didn't say that, but his whole expression and his eyes got glossy, and I have goosebumps. And I took this picture and I put it on a sweatshirt of him sitting, Candace sitting in the chair, and he's standing right next to Candace, and his face was just like lit up. Like, and the impression of what they were doing as basketball players was amazing, but the reach and to call him in and the acceptance and
Mhm.
"I see you" was massive for him, apparently. And I didn't know at the time when he was 6th grade that was gonna impact him
Right.
that way. But now, I mean, he likes NBA basketball, but he can tell you every single thing about the WNBA. Every single thing about every single
Mhm.
player. Or he's asking me like, "Who do you think's gonna get traded? What do you think?" He's asking me these questions that are layers and levels to it because he was just in that place
Right.
with me to see it. So, I mean, you have to see her to be her, but that goes for men and women. That goes for boys and girls. It's not just for the girls, right? There are so many different things that you don't even know that your kids are
Mhm.
soaking in when you have them in environments like that of high level competitors
Right.
and what they represent. And when they see you too, then man, you're hooked. So that was to me that always be like a precious moment. And he still has that
I have
sweatshirt.
goosebumps.
He
Like,
still has a sweatshirt,
That is
man.
amazing.
But it moved him, to know that of all the people, she accepted him and, was talking to him, like, "When's your next game?" Like, just had this heart to heart with him. And then to this day, like, it's still, like, close to him. So,
so
yeah,
that was like his North Star. Like, that's super
absolutely.
cool.
Absolutely. Because she could do, because I said, I asked him, I was like, "So Candace is your favorite player because she reminds you of mommy?" He goes, "No." I was like, "Oh, come on, man." I didn't play anything like her, but I was like, "Come on." I was trying to find some common ground, but that definitely was not it. So he was like, "No." I wasn't. I was like,
Dream
"Why?"
killer.
No, I was like, "Wow, come on, let mommy live for 2 seconds." But he's like, "No."
Oh
But
my God.
but yeah, I think that's a special deal,
Yeah.
just to have them in those environments and the respect. And I remember them asking me like, "Why do people say negative things about women's basketball?" And I was like, "Because they haven't been to a game. Like
Yeah.
they don't know better, right?"
They
And I
haven't been
think
to a practice or a workout or
none of it.
anything. They don't know how hard they work,
Absolutely.
you know, a lot. I would love to think that we work harder than the guys, you
I mean,
know?
we kind of have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Gotta be smarter.
Women's basketball is a slower game, but it's more fundamental. It's
Yeah.
more
It's more cerebral.
It's very
exactly.
cerebral, and you got to get those reps.
It's more exciting.
I believe so. The
And I
numbers are
love boys basketball,
yeah.
men's basketball, but it's more exciting.
Yeah.
It's more strategic, I feel like.
Yeah.
We have to
Yes.
utilize more of our
Because we're
body.
not that athletic or as athletic as guys,
Absolutely.
we have to break it down a little bit more.
No doubt. And they learn a lot. I think you see the NBA players at the WNBA games, right?
Yeah, they love
Starting
it.
with Kobe, and late great
Mhm.
Kobe was, one of the first to cross those lines
Yes.
and break it down with that documentary he had called Details,
Mhm.
right? And he broke it down with Diana Taurasi and players. So, I mean, they understand. So it's all relative. So I tell the kids,
Absolutely.
like, these people, you have to understand who they are, like, right? You listen to what the winners say about women's basketball, not people who have like no idea, right? Consider the source. And if that source hasn't won anything, then
Mhm.
you can dismiss it.
There are a lot of internet coaches
Thank
and
you.
a lot of internet critics that have never touched a
Thank
basketball,
you.
but know
Consider.
everything
Talk about that.
about it.
And the internet critics have been loud for years. And then all of a sudden, now we have this influx of women's basketball supporters.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, can we talk about how the perspective has shifted over the years, especially like, I mean, your son is an example of y'all should have known. Like, why? Like, what are you noticing about how people are perceiving women's basketball today that we already know?
I love the attention that it's getting, and I love that it's finally being presented to the world as it should have been long ago.
Yes.
Um, I think my downfall with it is that there were so many great players prior to the ones that are being presented right now,
Preach.
and they did not get the shine that they deserve. And I love how Paige Becker speaks up about the past.
Absolutely.
Um, I love how the current players, period, speak up about the past.
Mhm.
And I just want that to be the narrative and
And
not just what's going on right now.
yes. I mean, it's way overdue. Way overdue. I mean, sitting in rooms with C. Vivian Stringer
Yes.
and just listening to
My
her
favorite all-time
speak.
coaches.
I mean, same. And the fact that she says, if you don't know where you came from, how are you going to move forward? And I'm like 2 ears, 1 mouth, sitting and taking all of that in. And when she said that she had to go into churches when she was coaching to get money for them to have shoes at Cheney University, like they're a university. Like it's not like, our high school teams where, okay, that would have been a good idea to go into churches to do that. But she's at Cheney University
Yeah.
and going grassroots at the church, knocking on the church door, getting in front of the church on the pulpit and saying, we need to take up an offering so that my team can have sneakers to play in a tournament that's coming up. So I'm like, you know, I know when you are coaching, because I know when I was coaching, I would tell them these stories,
Yeah.
so that they don't take these opportunities for granted and they understand from whence they've come. Right, this game has grown from somewhere, didn't just all of a sudden pop. Right, there have been the shoulders of many, right, that we are currently standing on in the game. So for C. Vivian Stringer, she will always like be the Mount Rushmore for me alone, singularly,
Yeah.
because there weren't a lot of Black women who were coaching. She took 3 different schools to the Final Four, the only coach ever to do that, right? Iowa and Rutgers being the other 2 outside of Cheney. And so for me, um, it's always the sacrifice has to start somewhere. And the fact that it started that way, and the fact that now, you have Asia Wilson's on top, top, right? From hearing the story of C. Vivian Stringer to seeing the commercial
Right.
with Asia Wilson and selling out in 5 minutes with her shoes.
Yes.
Come on, man.
I bought a
Like,
pair the other day, by the way.
I love that. I need to get
Yes,
some.
I have the blue pair and the black and
Let's
pink
go,
pair.
period. The
Yes, I'm
pink
sorry.
ones, though. The pink ones. But I'm saying it's like the impact,
Yeah.
right? And I think social media, has a lot to do with that. I think NIL deals where marketing is in place in college
Yeah.
carries into the WNBA. And I think, the rivalries, people try to paint the rivalries into more than what they are in terms of just being a good old fashioned
Game.
great player
Competition
against great player.
Exactly.
Let's just hoop. And you're trying to make it into all these other, other things. And, it shouldn't be like that.
Right.
It shouldn't be like that. To draw eyes to the
I hate that
game.
that's the narrative that, like you say, drew eyes to
Absolutely.
our game. That I want to say the right words. That
Gotcha.
competition
Yeah.
between the two.
Yeah.
But so much came before that.
Thank you. Talk about that.
even a couple years before that with Asia Wilson. And
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
not new.
It's not.
It's true. Like, we true to this and not new to this, man. And there's so many. I mean, Cheryl Miller for me was the one, right?
I was
And
Cheryl Miller, Dawn Staley,
Dawn.
Cynthia Cooper,
Yep.
Lisa Leslie,
Let's
Tina
go.
Thompson.
Let's go. Rattle them off.
Yeah.
Rattle them off. I mean, there's like,
Nikki McCrae is my
Nikki
favorite player.
McCrae.
oh, Nick.
That's
Yeah.
Nikki McCrae
Yes,
is my
absolutely.
North Star
See?
Yep.
of basketball.
Yeah. I
So,
mean,
God rest her soul.
absolutely. But there's just so much that people don't understand, right? It's
Mhm.
not just about like where the game is today. Like the seedlings were planted long ago. That 96 Olympic team.
Yep.
I think that was like the beginning of some motion. But then I think the needle has moved, the collective bargaining agreement in the WNBA, all those things, right, are happening. The chartered flights in the WNBA, all these things are happening
Right.
because of what happened
Back
long
then,
ago.
yes.
So respect that part of the game too.
lovely. Yes. All of that is so true. And I do want to know, like, how have you maintained your love for basketball through all these ups and downs and ebbs and flows throughout the years?
Um, well, if you love it, you love it. It's
Period.
not going to go away. Sometimes you just have to block out the noise.
Yeah.
And keep the main thing the main thing.
Absolutely.
And just keep pushing from there. Make your focus. Like my focus just was on Largo basketball. Playing there and becoming the coach there was like, it was like you say, a full circle for me.
Yeah.
Playing under Robert Blair and Vanessa Blair, that was now at
Mhm.
George Mason,
Yeah.
and her sisters, Bridget and Gina. They set that foundation for me to love the game and to love basketball.
Mm.
So when I was at Largo, everything that was going on in the world, I just had to shut it out and make my focus what it was. So
Mhm.
I just kept the main thing, and it's been there ever since.
What did Bob Blair say? He recently passed away, but you were so sweet with what you said about hard work.
Yes, he said that nothing beats hard work but more hard work.
There you go. There you go.
And
Yeah.
I remember the first time him saying that in the locker room, and I was like, huh? But it makes so much sense now.
Mm.
Being a 14-year-old kid, hearing him say that, it's like, that don't make sense. But now that I'm grown and I now tell my players this,
Yeah.
it makes it. We have a whole quote. We have a picture in our locker room of him
Oh.
after he retired and all of the years that he coached, all 24, I think, years that he coached, and then his records. And
Oh.
that's the quote that's right underneath his picture. Nothing beats hard work but more hard work.
Man.
And, I point it out to my kids in the locker room all the time. So it's amazing.
Man, I love that.
Cousin, right?
That Vanessa is my cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, people used to say, "Hey, Vanessa," and I just got tired of saying no. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like,
And y'all do
she's
look
like,
alike.
I know we
So.
have the same little something, but I think for me, it's the encouragement piece, right? I think not that I want anybody to hold my hand, when I
Mhm.
was younger and just learning the game. But I did want, we were talking about Candace Parker and like just somebody to see me, right? I have an older brother and went to the boys basketball camps. There's like two other girls there. It's like 100 boys. Like
Mhm.
the other two girls were there because their brothers were there and they were just like, oh my God, why am I here? But I actually wanted to play and learn and get better. And Wendell Bird, who was the head coach at South Lakes, pulled me out of the crowd. And I was like looking like, I was like, me, to come out and do some shooting drill or something. He was like, see how she shoots it? And I was like, oh, she was like, it's actually talking about me. And in front of all these boys, right? We were
Right.
talking about the gender thing and the respectability, but he fished me out of the pond of all these boys. So like for me, just the validation of that was massive, even though it was something very small. Like to say it out loud now, it's like, okay. But no, like I was 12, right? So for that to happen in that environment and the handshake of respect,
Mhm.
you see me like doing something, and I'm like, oh, snap. And then my coach, my freshman year, I missed a free throw and it cost us the game. But she said, I heard you thought you lost the game for the team. And I'm like, yeah, I missed, the free throw at the end was 7 seconds left. Now it wasn't a good free throw, obviously free throw shooter at that time. And just, I took it real heavy. And she was like, that could have happened at the very beginning of the game, the middle of the game, or when it happened there at the end. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be, you have to be consistent. And she passed away 2 weeks after she told me that. So for me, I'm fine. Not really. But for me, it taught me how to teach the game, right? And not to have it be just, the end of the game that mattered, or, or have one kid think it's all about, what you did or didn't do. And if you made that free throw, it's not because you did that, right? It's every little piece, every little possession that matters. And the microcosm of that to life lessons was huge. And I was 14,
Mm-hmm.
right? So why do I still love the game? It's because of those things, those lessons, those, maybe, not necessarily a big play or something exciting, but something that I internalized, right? That kept my love alive. So, and I wanted to be that for other people.
Yeah.
Okay. Because of that experience that I had of being seen, of being validated, I see you working, and to give that back to the game. Because for me, that gave me everything that I
Right.
needed.
Something seemingly so small in the moment
Right.
Mm-hmm.
has carried you
Absolutely.
both this
Just
That
pour
is
back in.
it's the lessons that you learn,
Absolutely.
but that
Absolutely.
translate into everyday life.
Yeah.
Just because you failed this one time or missed this one free throw
Hmm.
doesn't mean that you can't fix that to make sure you get it right the next time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just those life lessons that you learn through the game.
And that was crazy because flash forward to junior year at Maryland, we were at Texas, Elite Eight. When you go to the Final Four, I'm on the line, 12 seconds. My parents were watching nose to the screen because they were coming to the Final Four. And, I did my same routine, made the first one. They called timeout. Coach Weller's like, after you make this one, this is what we're going to do. I'm like, all right, okay. I'm like, all right, okay, sure. But, because of what happened freshman year, I had my butt in gym and I'm like, I'll never feel, even after she passed, I was like, I'm never going to feel like that again, ever.
Mm-hmm.
Went out there, did dribble, spin, dribble, spin, and made the second one. We ended up winning and going. And, I always equate that freshman year high school to that moment, because if I hadn't had that and then had that drive to not have it happen again, we wouldn't have gone to the final. You know what I mean? And not that that would have been the be all end all play, but the fact that it was almost a 180 to those kinds of circumstances, I was like, that's never going to happen again. And the fact that, that it didn't, that also continued to pour. And
Right.
that's that love, because you see results of the work that you put in
Exactly.
because of what you didn't want
It was
to
lesson
happen.
learned.
Mm-hmm.
Lesson learned. And then now I can share that. Hey, this happened to me.
Yep.
So it gives the other kids freedom to make mistakes or to fail.
Yep.
And for that to be okay, because you're going to learn, how to fix it, like you said, and in those moments. So it's like when, you get to a certain age, you just start to be very reflective, right? And how things start aligning and making sense. Like, that's why that happened. That's why that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the stuff is like a puzzle, right? And it's all connected. And the older you get, the more you see this energy of why things happen the way they did.
Right.
That's amazing. So, and then piggybacking off of that, how have you instilled this into your respective sons, Jordan and Cam, through their journey?
Oh,
Just making sure that he understands that it's okay to mess up, and it's okay to go through things, and it's okay to not be perfect, and it's okay to have feelings and feel what you need to feel. And, it's okay to have friends on other teams, but at the moment, it's all competition,
yeah,
After the game, y'all can be friends,
that's right.
But, just letting him know that it's okay just to be him and not have to be anybody else in that gym but Cam Ward.
Yeah.
And let him know that, I don't want you to play for me or your dad
Period.
or your brothers or your sisters. You have to play for you, because if this isn't what you want to do, we can go find something else to do,
Right.
But so just making sure that he was comfortable with being him was probably the most important thing for me. Because I never wanted him or the other kids, my son Kanan or Kalia, I never want them to do anything for me or
Absolutely.
for us as parents. You know, they have to do what they want to do, and we'll support what they want to do as long as it's in
Yeah,
the right
absolutely.
realm, you know.
Yeah.
But just giving them that confidence to go out and be able to be them, unapologetically be them, was probably my main goal with raising my kids. And to see that they're flourishing right now is just it's a proud mommy moment, you know. I know I wasn't perfect as a mom. I don't think any of us are.
No.
But just knowing that the foundation that was set in our house
Mhm.
with the village that they have around them, which isn't many. Um,
Oh,
I'm protective. I'm sorry,
I love
mommy
it.
bear.
No, hey, listen, same here.
Just being selective, I guess, about the people that are around them and the people that can sow into them, and
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
making sure that they became the people that are acceptable in society. They're not out here being a menace. They're not out here,
Mhm,
you know, doing uncharacteristic things. You know, they're polite.
mhm.
You know, they have manners. You know, those are the things that I wanted, regardless of if basketball was going to be in his
The thing,
future.
yeah,
Those are the things that I needed to be set.
yeah.
And it's just magical that all of them came together with basketball.
Mhm,
So now I have this awesome kid going to Michigan State, you know, and he set great examples for his brother and sister.
mhm.
So for him to be the oldest, he has two
Yeah.
youngers looking at him and they're like, that's my brother,
No.
you know, and they're proud too. So,
Mm, I love that. On the flip side for me, because
right.
Jordan's our youngest,
Hmm.
so I think sometimes, the youngest always wants to outdo everybody else, right? And so that's kind of been the thing for Jordan, his entire life. I mean, he learned how to stand up. He crawled in between the 2 of them, pushed their shoulders, and they were like, "Oh my god, mommy, look, he's standing up." And, like, he's always been right in the middle of the 2 of them, from that point. So, I mean, when they were all getting taller, he was the younger of, obviously, the 3, so he would always be in tiptoes in the picture, like, he was always trying to measure up to those 2, and, I think that competitiveness carried over to basketball because all 5 of us played at South Lake. So for him, it was like, I want to stay here. And Cam probably could have gone private school too. And
Yeah.
they played for the home team and for the tradition of it all and the loyalty of it all. And I think that speaks to, the character of both boys.
Hmm.
But with that, it's like Jordan was like, "Mom, how many rings in total, like districts, regionals, and states? Like, how many do?" I'm like, "Man, I don't know." And then I was like, when I did count them up, I was like, "Wait, can I do the coaching too? Because you're getting real,
Right.
really close." But that's how competitive
Yeah.
he's been, and I think he just wants to still, like, he wants to outdo
Hmm.
everybody. We were leaving to the car. He's like, I got shotgun. He was the one. It was always like first to the doorknob, first to the car door. I'm like, dang, dude, everything was a
A
competition
competition.
for him because he was the youngest. So he was making his presence felt always. And this is the last thing I'll say about it. But like when he was like 5 or something like that, someone asked him, like, everybody in your house play basketball. So who's the best? He's like, me. And his face was like this. And I was like, oh, I'm kikiing it off. I'm like, oh, kiki it. And then he was like, no, I'm dead serious. Like his
Right.
face was like, and I'm like,
I love
okay.
that.
The kindergartner like had all this like he wanted to prove that.
Hmm.
And
It's still in him.
and he did it. And then to go to Michigan State, with Cam, they played against each other
Growing up.
when they were little, all in AAUs and all that stuff. But the work ethic and the grind and just the want to rather
Hmm.
than the have to,
Yeah.
right? Is at the top of the list. That's paramount, I think, for both. And I don't want to speak for you, but I know that, like, just watching, like, how they compete, like, that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
not like I have to be out here. And as coaches, players who have that
Have that
approach
mentality. Yeah.
and others who don't. So I think that's been the most precious. And how do you keep that in the forefront? I think you just, again, like, fan the flame. Like,
Hmm.
they have the flame, so you just encourage that.
Hmm.
You keep that competitive carrot, if you will, dangling, and just try to just make sure they understand that there's no fear
Yeah.
and there are no regrets. That's, I'm driving them to the bus to go to states, right? And I'm like, no fear, no regrets. go out there and just that's how you have to approach the moment, be in the moment and every possession, right? From going back to the ninth grade preacher, every single possession, no fear and no regrets. And that's how you have to approach life, number one. But, there weren't really long, you know, drawn out speeches
Yeah.
to Jordan, right? But you just little subtle reminder, no regrets, no fear, and just go do your best, have fun, like just go out and hoop. So
And so, with both you guys being mothers to these elite athletes, let's talk about what this moment means with both your sons growing up parallel to each other in a sense in this tight knit basketball community, and now taking their talents outside the community, which I know both you guys are very protective over your
yes, very,
sons.
very, very, yeah,
So, let's talk about
for real,
Very.
yeah.
let's talk about what that was like kind of watching each other throughout the years and now reaching a pinnacle in all of this and what this moment really means.
It was some hard fought battles in AAU,
Yeah.
you know.
So
um,
we played 'em every other day, felt like.
I know we would
I
go out of
played
town
like
and play
10
each other.
times. I know we'd be in Florida somewhere
But
playing.
Cam played with Team Durant, and at the beginning, Jordan played with Nova '94, and in the what is it, the regional,
Yeah,
or
regional to
the
get out.
qualifier for
Yeah, the
AAU.
qualifiers, yeah.
We would play against each other, and I
Yeah.
think maybe one year they would beat us in the championship, and the next year we would beat them in the
Yeah.
championship. And
It was nuts.
I was kind of in my feelings. She posted a video of Jordan scoring on Cam at the buzzer.
Oh, because they were tiny. That's the only video I had. But no,
It was
they were
so
like
awesome,
9.
though. It was so awesome. Yes, they were like
They were like
9,
little,
but it was. I mean,
4th,
it was
4th grade.
the game came down to the wire,
It did.
and
All the
it was
games.
so amazing, and just to see both of them where they are now. Who would have known?
Yeah.
We knew both of them were going to be tall. We knew both of them were very athletic. We knew both of them were very skilled. But who would have thought that throughout all of that, those two would end up together?
Together. Yeah. It's bananas. And for me, I felt like we played each other, whether we were in DC, or not, in Maryland, DMV, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We would go to Philly and we
end up
we
playing
were
each other,
playing
right.
Team Durant again. Like, we can't escape it. But
But it spoke
it was
to
always
the
good.
talent on our teams, and that we
Absolutely.
would always meet each other in the
Always
championship
good.
or in the high, in the
Yeah.
higher level of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it just spoke to the talent that was on both teams.
Yeah, no doubt. And what I remember, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but it seemed like every time we played, which was a lot, after the game,
Mhm.
they would talk to each other.
Yeah, they were cool.
And they would be laughing and chatty and good.
Yeah.
So for me, I look back to that.
Mm-hmm.
The competition, yes, but that part, because that doesn't always happen
It doesn't.
at the AAU level,
Doesn't.
and they were good friends, like they were good basketball friends,
Right.
right? And then now they're going to be roommates,
Right.
at Michigan State.
They're roommates.
They're
Yes.
going to be roommates. So it's like, to me, I just flash back to their tiny little faces, right?
Mhm.
When they're 4th and 5th grade. After games, like, oh man, that move, or oh Cam, you did this, or well Jordan, you did that, or whatever, and they would be talking, like just having a general
Headed to the
chit chat,
concession stand.
going to get some food,
Going to get some pizza,
and get
So it
something to
was
eat. Yeah. But there was
amazing.
always love, though.
Always.
There was always love. And I think that's what makes it even more sweet. It's not like someone's coming from Texas and someone's coming from Philly. It's like you're from the DMV. And then, they had that camaraderie, although they weren't on the same team. They had that DMV camaraderie
Right.
and that respect. And I think that's what makes it really
It's
beautiful.
a different language that we speak here, just
It is.
knowing
Yeah.
each other in that
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It was very nice. It was very cool. Yeah.
So why Michigan State for them?
Ooh. Not to discredit any of the other universities that we took visits to or recruited Cam. It was just something about Michigan State and how they recruited Cam. And I guess it makes for a plus that I was the athletic director and I worked in the building. So when Coach Izzo and Coach Wojcik and Coach TK would come on visits, they always came to the school. Because myself, I'm there. Cam's dad is the IT at Largo, so he's in the building too. So it just made for one good community visit, And the amount of times they came to visit. And then everything that they preached about their team and their program and the kids on the program and the university as a whole, when we got on campus, it was to a T. It was to a T. There was no fluff. There was no sugarcoating. There was no extras. It was everything was to a T. It was everything they said. It was everything that they preached. And it just felt like this was it. It just felt right.
Yeah. I mean, the same, for Jordan. I mean, I think he was 10th grade, when they started recruiting him heavily. And again, no shade to any of the other schools that Jordan was involved with in the recruiting process, but there was something different about Michigan State from the beginning. And I think the fact that, when Jordan moved to the Under Armour circuit and went with Virginia Elite with Thomas Gadsden and them, I think for Tom Izzo to have coached for 30 years and to have never gone to an Under Armour tournament until he came to see Jordan play, that stood out to Jordan, in a massive way, right? So, and that's what the Under Armour people told him. Like, I don't know. Like, we weren't here 30 years ago. I don't know if he popped in, 15 years ago to see a kid. And I recruited. So I understand. Like, if you are trying to really get someone, I mean, I recruited for 9 years. So if I was trying to get somebody, I'm gonna show up. I don't care what circuit it is. If you playing, I'm there. And I think, and I kind of relay that to Jordan too. Like, wow, like that means a lot. Like, if you're going to make your way and go out of your way and to be the first to come to that. So I think the fact that he was at all those games, came to the school, sat in the cafeteria and ate lunch with Jordan.
Yeah.
Right. With his childhood friends that he was in kindergarten with, sitting at the table with him. He's got his lunch, and Izzo sitting at the table, and the other kids were like, "Is that Tom Izzo sitting in the cafeteria?" And the joke is that he went next door to the middle school by accident on the first visit because the schools are very close. And then he caused a stir over there. Like, oh my God, Tom Izzo's at Langston Hughes. But, he came for several visits. He went to my mom's house. My mom had, a fruit bowl, and he's like, I don't know when the last time I had a pear. It was like, so he went to my mom's house. Like, there were just levels and layers to the support.
Right.
And the appearances. And, we're coming to an early morning workout. Izzo's at the workout. Wojcik is at the workout. TK come to a game, so it was the involvement.
Yeah.
It was, you fit what we do. We are a family. And I know a lot of coaches say it's a family feel here. That's not the case everywhere. And again, no shade, but no fluff. You are what you are. We went on a visit together.
Yeah.
That one last official visit, and we had dinner at their house. And Izzo was walking around with a piece of bread and like, anybody want anything? You guys, everybody good?
It felt like a family reunion.
We were at his, like, it was like this from the beginning, right?
From
like
the guys to just maybe just some community partners that might have been there or whatever. It just felt, from the wives of the coaches to everything, it just felt like a big family.
Yeah.
And to piggyback on what you said about how Coach Izzo, just came to the school and had lunch. Well, they didn't eat lunch at Largo. Okay.
Sorry.
But they just walked around the building and they introduced themselves to the teachers and they shook hands and, took pictures with the kids. And they were just very, that's Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom Izzo. Let me fix that. I'm sorry. Let me fix that. Uncle Tom Izzo, And, it was just like he was part of the crew. He was part of the family.
Yes.
And everybody respected it and they loved, when he came through, because they knew they were going to get good conversation.
Yeah.
They were going to get a friendly body and they were going to get, just what they needed. But they wanted to know everybody that was involved.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In the process. They wanted to introduce themselves to everybody that had a hand on Cam.
Yeah.
And make sure that they knew that he was going to be in good hands if he chose Michigan State. And I think that was just a plus for us.
Same. And, just being there, and to be there on like grind week where the alumni come back. And, Jordan did that a couple times, like sophomore year and junior year. And just to be around those alums and to see how they return. that's a major deal because not a
Cam's so
lot of
excited
players
about grind
come
weekend. It
back.
hasn't even come yet.
It was so great because a lot of the guys are in the league, like Draymond Green was there talking to Jordan. And then he was like, "Yeah, we'll be right back." I'm like, "Where are you taking Jordan?" But they were just, just around the corner. But still, I'm like, he's a baby, but just to have those kinds of conversations with those winners,
Yeah.
right? And not just winners at Michigan State, but winners in life, winners in the league, just winners in terms of their habits. I just thought that it was really cool just to have him in those environments too. So the coaches, yes, but the genuineness and the love that is returned from these alums, and it was a bunch of them. It wasn't just like one or two kids, one or two alums. It was like 30. Mateen Cleaves,
Wow.
all these Bridges, all these guys,
It's just a
Richardson, Jason
community.
Richardson,
Jason Richardson,
taking them around the corner, like, "We'll be back." And I'm like, wow, wow, wow. Okay. I'm like, okay, let me go to get a coffee then.
Right.
We'll see you in an hour. But it was like you trust them, right? You entrusted your child, right, to be in that environment with those winners. And I think that's what made a difference too, because it's sometimes it's the optics that matter, but also it's the feel.
Yes.
And for basketball, we hoop, so it's like everything, and we coach, so it's like there's always a feel.
Yeah.
You go in with the best laid plan, but that's all out the window if you feel something needs to happen or you feel something needs to change.
Feel that
So
energy is off.
feel the energy's on.
No, the energy was never off when we were there.
Or on, right? The energy was definitely on.
It was
so
all the way on.
all the time. So
There was never a break in the energy. I don't even care if we were just at the hotel. The
Yeah.
break in the energy was still there.
absolutely.
So
real
it was
stuff.
And I think we were headed to the airport and Cam looked at me. He said, "What you think?" And I was like, "Say, this is not my decision, sir."
Right.
And he was like,
Right.
"I think we've all decided." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay."
Yeah. Yeah. And that
All
was
right.
with, same with Jordan when he came to his decision. I'm like, do pros and cons list, right? And I think, with Bree being at Georgetown, it came down, it was like UVA and all that, Tina Thompson was coaching there, which was like Tina's in her ear. And I love Tina and she loved that process, but it was really difficult, right? To make it a choice. So make a pros cons list and not just for today, like
Right.
just big picture it. And when he did that, I mean, that pros list was super long when
We
it
did the
came
same
down
thing
to
too.
it. See? Yeah.
And that pros list.
Visual. Yeah.
And we had the pros and cons for every school that he had in his Final Four.
Right.
And
Yeah. Same.
That
It
is
Same.
that's
That was the difference.
Do you guys
right?
have a picture of the
no.
But no, I mean, you crumbled that up after we made the choice.
Sorry.
But just know it was very
It was-
skewed to
it
the
was-
positive side for Michigan State for sure.
Right. And it was
Yeah,
amazing
it
to
was
see
big.
my son, though, point out his pros and cons.
Absolutely right.
And
what that is. Yeah,
what that was,
Yeah.
what that meant to him.
absolutely,
And I was like, "Oh, my son's, this is something important to you? Okay."
absolutely,
So it was kind of like, wow, he's really growing up.
absolutely.
And it was
Yeah.
amazing that
Yeah.
the things that he pointed out, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It kind of made you feel like I might have did something right,
Oh, mama. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
For sure. Yeah, I
Yes.
think it was a major deal. And you get to, you respect that, right? Because again, you lay the seedlings, right,
Right.
of the things, and you hope that character-wise those things bloom and when they can come to their own decisions, it's a huge decision, right? So, for them to be able to conduct themselves that way
Yeah.
and come to it on their own, and then to understand the reasons why. I mean, it's a beautiful process. So just proud of both of them.
Yeah. And they're just great young men.
They are.
They seem like it. Like just
Yeah.
from what you guys post about them, just
Yeah.
watching from the sideline. Like
They are.
look at them
Yeah.
raising these really great
Yeah.
athletes, but they seem to be great human beings.
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
And that's
I like them.
I like them a lot. No, but they're super sweet. And, they're great students and, they're great, just people in the community. And I
Yeah.
think they understand that. I think they understand who they are for the community,
Right.
right? To do it the right way,
Because
to
they stay
stay at
home.
the home school, right? And, to set that example for the next wave, of players coming through.
Right.
So I think you'll see the fruits of that later. And then maybe someone will say, I saw Cam Ward play and that's what inspired me, or I saw Jordan Scott play
Right.
and that's what was my North Star. Right. So that'll be very sweet to hear in years to come. So
All right, last question. What are you both looking forward to with your sons going to Michigan State this fall?
that's a
Um,
great one. Else.
Honestly, I'm just looking for him to grow.
Yeah.
Grow as a man, grow in whatever field he wants to go into. Like, yeah, I know he's interested in kinesiology as well as business. So whether he puts the two together or whatever, just to see him grow and to come into who he wants to be. I'm just looking forward to that. My son can be a jokester all the time, but to when he does have the serious conversations, to see that come into fruition is what I'm looking forward to.
Oh, man, what am I looking forward to? I'm trying not to be a crybaby right now. I'm really holding it in here. But with him being the youngest, it's like I still want him to prove himself to himself.
Right.
He's been competing with his brother and sister, and even with the whole family. But I think, I just want to see him be who God says he is,
Yeah.
right? And that is, fearfully and wonderfully made. And I
Mhm.
think he's made for this moment as Cam is.
Yeah.
And the trials and tribulations that come with being a student athlete, especially in this environment, social media. People can be cruel. We were talking about that earlier. Just consider the source with that stuff and keep trucking, right? And keep chopping and keep getting better, 1% better every day. And that's what I want to see for him. His character, I want that to continue to bloom. I want him to, have no fear, no regrets with everything that he does. But most importantly, as a young man, right, to become his best self because of the challenge that this is going to present. For him to be disciplined and
Mhm.
focused and in the moment, but to win every day that he can. And some days you won't win.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not talking about games, like just emotionally.
Yes.
Sometimes
Just
you
one.
lose,
Mhm.
you lost that day, and that's okay because you can get it back. But I just want him to be able to handle the roller coaster of it all, the emotional side of it all, and the character challenges that are going to be in front of him.
Yes.
I want him to handle it with strength, with confidence, determination, resilience,
Yeah.
and persistence. And I think if he keeps all that in front of him and he keeps his hand in God's hand, um, I'm happy for him.
Yeah, I love that. And last question for you both personally. Why can't you retire from this?
I can't retire from this because there's so much more behind me
Mhm.
that don't have
Oh,
what I had. So I have to be there, to make sure that they get the same thing that I got. Be their sounding board.
Ooh, you caught me up right there. Ooh, whew, I get myself together again. Lord have mercy. Ooh, wee. Thank you. I needed church again. Oh my God. Man, okay, so I stepped away from coaching 3 years ago because I wanted to be at my kids' games. So people are like, "You retired," and I'm like, "No, I didn't retire. I stepped away," right? Because we all 3 had games the same night,
Mhm.
and it was even with my athletic mentality and the compartmentalization that I say I could do pretty well, I was drowning in
Right.
it, and I felt like I'm there for everybody else's kid, and my 2 kids are playing right now. Felt distracted, by that. And then at halftime, I send the coaches out and the team out. It was like 3 minutes on the warm-up clock. I said to one of the coaches, "Text me when there's like a minute left and we'll come out." And I get in my phone and try to stream the games. So thank you. So I didn't wanna, retiring is not what it was, right? So for me, I had to make a choice. And I asked all 3 kids, "What do you think mommy should do?" They're like, "Mom, we're not going to tell you what to do." And then Jordan said, "But you love coaching." And I was like, "And I'm done." Right. And I said, "I'm stepping away because I didn't want them to think that I love coaching more than I love being there for them. So for me, at that time, and with him being the youngest, I can't retire. And I didn't retire. I just stepped away. And the reason why I can't retire is because, I want to be an example for them to always follow their heart. And my heart was telling me to step away. And I can never retire. I don't care if I'm 110 years old. I'm still going to be up watching basketball games. I'm still going to be, in love with the game so much. And for whatever I do, like when I'm talking about basketball, people say your energy is like that. And I'm like, I I love doing what I do. And I love that it's basketball. So I can't retire because of the love that is so deeply rooted in me. And it's not about pick and rolls. It's not about presses. It's about the unified attack of a goal. And for me, I want to always not just teach that, but I want to show that. And I want people to hear that. And not just through me, but through my kids and how they conduct themselves, who they are as people, how they attack their own goals, how they follow their heart. And that's why I can't retire because I'm still chasing it. I'm still chasing my heart. And I'll always do that because you can't go wrong when you do that. People are like, oh, you miss coaching? I'm like, absolutely. But I would miss my kids more, miss these moments that I can't get back more. So I can't retire, won't retire.
That was so beautiful.
I don't know how I made it through all that because I feel like I would be like
You
sobbing.
would have dropped a tear.
I was,
like,
no, I was about to. I was
I'd
like,
have been right
I
with
was
you.
rolling them back in there. Boy. Woo, woo, woo.
Thank you, ladies,
Put my
for
hands up.
such a great conversation.
Thank
Oh
you
my
for
gosh.
having us again.
Yes,
Again, 5 years later. Like,
insane.
here we are, still can't retire from
Can't.
this.
Can't do it.
Can't retire. Let's bring it in.
I need to say how proud I am of you.
Oh, let's go.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
I got to give you
baby.
your flowers.
Yes,
okay.
baby.
Because
Yes, baby.
5 years ago, this wasn't a thing. And like you also, I heard you all mention before in the water documentary.
Yeah.
Watching it, I had those same feelings. I was like, wow, they only represented Becky. And I grew up with Becky,
Yeah.
Rebecca Brunson.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Becky was awesome.
She was.
I said, but Lord, there was so many more.
We just scratched the surface.
Right.
Yeah.
So many more before her, so many more during her,
Yep.
so many more after her,
All of them. Yeah.
But I want to thank you for bringing the story of girls basketball in the DMV to light
Yes.
and putting some shine on it. When they talk about DMV basketball and they say it's the best in the country, they never mention girls basketball.
Right.
They always mention the boys.
Yeah.
And I thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of that history.
No.
Laid the foundation. I'm just here to make sure people can see it.
Yeah.
But your vision is putting everybody out there.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing.
No. And keep rowing the boat because there are more, like you said, there are more coming behind, right? That need to see from whence they came, right? Talking about what C. Vivian Stringer said.
Yeah.
How can they move forward if they don't know what has happened previously? And you are documenting that. And, like you said, your flowers are here for you. Your flowers are here for you because this is only the beginning for you, right? There are so many more stories to tell and they need to be told so that our game can continue to grow as beautifully as it has. And the needle, has moved, but there's still, it's like moved to here, but there's still this much more to go.
So much.
There's so much more to attack. So just stay vicious with your attack of telling these stories that need to be told because you never know who you're inspiring and not just on the court. Maybe someone's watching you and they want to do what you're doing. How awesome is that? And that's your purpose and your why is to be that for someone, right? And to understand you always have little eyes upon you that want the blueprint of how it's done, and you've been able to do it with excellence.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for always shouting out the DMV anytime that you are on a
I
game.
do all the time.
I was watching.
Every single time.
First of all, it was hilarious when you shouted out your daughter 2 days ago.
I did.
Oh my God, I was cracking up.
I did. Oh, because they showed her in
Yes, in
yeah.
4K, you had her.
Yes, yeah. I was like, "Oh, we're coming back from commercials. She's sitting up there with her boyfriend."
And you said this is her friend.
I was like, "This is
That's
her
a
friend that's a
boy."
boy." I was like, "Oh, look at Bree and her friend that's a boy." I was like, she was like,
long slide.
she was like, "My phone is blowing up. Did you say something?" I was like, "I mean, a little bit."
Her
She,
friend, that's a boy.
friend that's a boy sitting next to her. Yeah.
That was great. But thank you for those flowers and thank you both for like staying local and really repping and keeping this community close to your heart.
Oh,
Like,
always.
That
Absolutely.
that helps advance my stories as well. Like the foundation is here, and no matter where I am in the country, like I know it's handled.
Yeah.
I don't have to be here, but it's handled.
Yeah.
So
We got you.
It's all love. Always.
thank you,
Always.
thank you. Did we bring it in yet? There we go.
Bring it on in. We
All right.
got our wrist.
Can't retire on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Can't retire.
That's it for us, y'all. The Can't Retire fam appreciates you tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the pod on whatever platform you prefer and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Can't Retire Project. Sideline Stories, a Can't Retire from this podcast, is produced and edited by Melanie Page, Brittany Brown, and Misha Jones. Our hosts are Misha Jones, Melanie Page, Jasmine Dallas, and Tanisha Benson, with special guest host Lindsay Allen. Thanks for listening.
All this time is still a fire in my eyes. I'ma keep shooting my shot 10,000 more times. Yeah, I move like life really is on the line. How could I let go of something this special? Every single day I see a sign, a reason not to stop, keep it pushing through the grind. Look how far I came, baby, I've been on the rise. After all this time, it's still a fire in my eyes. I'ma keep shooting my shot 10,000 more times. Yeah, I move like life really is on the line. How could I let go?